Madam Speaker, I rise in absolute fury today over what's going on to American women in this horrific decision by the Supreme Court to take away a fundamental right for the first time in our nation's history, to take away a fundamental right from millions of American women. Egregious enough in its own right that this has happened, we compound it with the fact that the tens of thousands of women who have stood up to answer our nation's call, to raise their right hand, to take the oath, to give their life for this country, to defend our freedoms, now don't have the same freedoms themselves. What is going on in this country? I served this country as an Army Ranger, 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. I served with my fellow men and women. I now sit in this body. I sit on the Armed Services Committee with my good friend Jackie Spear, where we now make policy that impacts the very privates that I used to be. I remember what it was like being Private Crow, sitting in those boots, having to live with the consequences of the decisions made under this dome. And I think about that now. I think about all the young women who want to serve. Maybe they want to follow in the footsteps of their mother or their grandmother. Maybe they are deeply patriotic people and they want to give back to their country. Maybe they're trying to pursue better opportunities and get some money for college. Whatever the motivation, they stand up and they take the same oath that I took and the same oath that millions of others have taken over our nation's history. And it's an oath that says you're willing to give your life and put it all on the line for your fellow countrymen and women. And now we are asking those women to not just be willing to give their life in defense of our nation, but to do so in a way that sets aside their own fundamental rights and their own freedoms and gives them second-class citizenship in the process of doing it. What is going on in this country and in this Capitol? We know that abortion care is a time-sensitive and necessary procedure. And we know that if service members can't access this necessary health care, that their very own health is in jeopardy. So let's just take a minute, let's just set aside the moral arguments, let's just park those for a minute, and just talk about military readiness. Let's talk about the defense of this nation that people love to talk about here in this Capitol. Support the troops. Tie a yellow ribbon around the tree. All right. How about we actually do right by the people that are willing to make those sacrifices? Service members don't have a choice of where they go to serve. That's part of the deal. You raise your right hand, you go to boot camp, you get trained on your job, and you go where the nation needs you. Are we really going to send thousands of women to places where they don't have rights and they can't access health care? How is that in the interests of our force? How does that create a healthy, productive, vibrant military? How is that good for recruiting? Well, it's not, obviously. It's not often where we just have an issue and it's just so egregiously abusive to people who are trying to do the right thing. It's not often where we're literally in a position of dissuading young men and women from serving this nation and making it harder for them to do it and making it harder for our military to recruit them. That's why I've been proud to work with Jackie Spear. We started this effort by co-leading together the March for Service Members Act. And then we talked to folks, we held roundtables, we held discussions, and we knew that just wasn't going to do it. That wasn't enough. We had to do more. And that's why we drafted and are pursuing this legislation, the Access to Reproductive Care for Service Members Act, which will require commanders to approve leave for abortion care automatically. It'll make DoD reimburse service members for the cost of travel to receive care, and it guarantees privacy protections for service members against retaliation from commanding officers and peers. Imagine that, being retaliated against by your commanding officer. Well, that should be illegal, and we're going to try to make it illegal. Folks, until we can pass a national law protecting abortion care and abortion rights for women, which we're going to try to do, and we're going to have to get rid of the filibuster to do it in the Senate. Until we do that, we're going to do everything possible to protect everybody we can. And now, today, it's going to continue with us protecting our service women. They're willing to give everything for us. The least we can do is have their back. We must pass this bill. I implore my fellow members to walk the talk. Don't just talk about supporting our service members. Do it. This is the way to do it. We can and must do this. We must have their back. Let's get this done. I yield back.